Our speaker is Radhia Krid from the University of Sfax, Tunisia. Today, she will be presenting her talk on the topic How Love is Verbally Constructed, a cognitive poetics analysis of the love song of Alfred Prufrock. Radhia Krid is an English literature researcher who works in the laboratory on approaches to discourse at the Faculty of Letters and Humanities at the University of Sfax, Tunisia. Her major interests are modernist, Anglophone, and contemporary poetry, literary criticism and reader response theories, and cognitive poetics. Radhia Krid is also interested in the link between literary studies, cultural studies, and linguistic studies in the teaching process. She is a member of the Poetry and Linguistics Association. Today, she will give a talk on the topic, How Love is Verbally Constructed, a cognitive poetics analysis of the love song of Alfred Prufrock.
Okay, my presentation is entitled The Love Song of Alfred Prufrock, When Love is Verbally Constructed, a Cognitive Poetics Analysis. This presentation consists of an introduction which deals with conceptualization of love in life and literature, the metaphors we love by, statement of the problem, objectives, methodology, findings, and discussion, and finally a conclusion. Well, actually, love is a set of emotions of a very intricate nature. And you raised the question already, Professor Vampire, when you said, do we love because we want to be happy, or is it a source of unhappiness? In life, love is conceptualized and is made manifest through different mediums, language, physical experiences, behavior, reactions, etc. However, in literature, love is conceptualized through one single medium, which is language. Example, I use an example from Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, in which he defines love as a smoke made with the fume of sighs, being purged, a fire sparkling in love's eyes, being vexed, a sea nourished with love's tears. What is it else? A madness most discreet, a choking gall, and a preserving sweet. Now, following this example, we can distinguish that love is an emotion of a very complex nature, and conceptualizing it in literature compels often some stylistic deviations. And when talk is about love in literature, writers and readers often deal with metaphors. Shakespeare's sonnets and plays, for example, Neruda's love poems, etc., that are consistent most of the time with our everyday discourse about love. Love is a smoke. Love can also be conceptualized as a fire, a sea, a madness, a gull, a sweet, a journey, a container, a patient. Now, if in literature love is not usually expressed by way of telling through a selection of the appropriate words of emotion or the description of some experiences, we need actually to go through the study of a metaphor complex in order to recognize that the talk is really about love. And a good example, which I'm going to study here in this presentation, is a modernist dramatic monologue entitled The Love Song of Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. Now, actually, this poem has always been perceived as a poem which can, as a representation of man's failure and loss. And it was not actually seriously taken as a love poem. In the present study, I suggest that the poem can be read as a love poem through an examination of a variety of conceptual metaphors which fill the poem. Regarding the centrality of metaphor within the cognitive paradigm, I think that cognitive poetics can be a very good point of departure for the study of love in the love song of Alfred Prufrock. Now, the study was carried out in order to suggest an interpretation of Eliot's peculiar dramatization of a love experience in a poem that has always been perceived as a representation of the modern man's failure in a chaotic age. This interpretation aims to bring poetry and the interdisciplinary theory of cognition closer to show how conceptual metaphors guide readers to keep track of a romantic love experience. I selected the love song of Alfred Prufrock because I see that it is filled with conceptual metaphors, and it also guides the readers to actually see love through his or her knowledge of what love is. Okay. The poet is T.S. Eliot. He's a modernist poet, critic, and playwright, and he's a founding father of the modernist movement. He's best known for his complex poems. I use cognitive poetics for this study, which is an interdisciplinary approach that combines various methods from the humanities and even from the sciences of the mind to provide a consistent paradigm for the investigation of the issues related to language and literature. That's why I consider it as an appropriate perspective from which metaphoricity is studied in literature. Now, according to cognitive linguists, language does not carry meaning, it guides it. They also assume that our ordinary conceptual system, in terms of which we both think and act, is fundamentally metaphorical in nature. So metaphor is not only consistent with works of literature, but it's also in the mind of people, in the mind of readers. The essence of metaphor is understanding, according to Lakoff and Johnson, understanding and experiencing one kind of thing in terms of another, which creates a relationship between two conceptual domains, the source domain and the target domain. Now, I move to the findings of my research. Now, the major aspect of the analyzed metaphors is the rich images, which are colored by the state of mind of the poem's persona. With the exception of the first metaphor, love is fire, all the analyzed metaphors tie into the network of meanings that refer to the persona's experience of love as a container. Love in this modernist poem is represented as a flame which quickly burns out of control and then sends the lover into a gulf from which there is no escape. Now I'm going to go through examples. If I thought, I refer to the epigraph of the poem, which is taken from Dante's Inferno. If I thought my reply would be to someone who would ever return to earth, this flame would remain without further movement. Now, emotions, according to Sir, are typically associated with some deviation from the normal level of energy, heightened and lowered psychic and physical energy, depending on their nature. So it involves this deviations at the level of energy. It is through the flame constantly moving that we come to the high level of energy that love consists in. And here, if I refer to Sir 2004, he considers that heat is associated to a high level of energy, while cold is associated to a low level of energy. Now, love is also conceptualized as a container in the poem, but as no one, this is an example taken from the epigraph, but as no one has ever returned alive from this gulf, if what I hear is true, I can answer you with no fear of infamy. Love as a container encloses the lover who loses control and falls into the gulf of love. And here I refer to the orientational space metaphor, which is control is up, loss of control is down. And here, when Prufrock loses control, he falls into the gulf of love. Love is also when love is conceptualized as fire and as a container through the epigraph, we might actually suppose that it is striking at the beginning, because the choice of these lines from Dante's Inferno to introduce the protagonist's love story is relevant. Why? Because the vicissitudes of the poem's emotional world are captured through our conceptualization of love as both fire, that is contiguous with passionate love and desire. Desire is often referred to as a flame. Container in which lovers fall and are imprisoned, which is conceptualized in the poem through the word gulf. Love is also conceptualized as a journey in the poem. And there are many examples to show this. The poem starts in medias res, and the first sentence we have is, "Let us go, then you and I." "Let us go, then you and I" is repeated 3 times in the poem. Throughout certain half-deserted streets that follow like a tedious argument to lead you to the yellow smoke that slides along the street, narrow streets, the sprinkled streets, we have lingered in the chambers of the sea. So the poem here, which starts in medias res, actually conceptualizes love as a journey in which the lovers are constantly moving together until they drone and reach the floors of silences. The path is full of mysteries, because here we have streets that follow like a tedious argument, etc., etc. So it's full of mysteries. It leads to the bottom of the sea that is contiguous with the conceptual metaphor, love is a container. Because at the end of the poem, we have the chambers of the sea and they reach the floor of the sea. Love is also conceptualized in the poem as a patient. And the afternoon, the evening sleeps so peacefully, smoothed by long fingers, asleep, tired, or it malingers, stretched on the floor, here beside you and me. This intensifies the image evoked earlier. From a simile like a patient to a personification, sleeps, tired, the evening turns into an animate that shares space and state, stretched on the floor with the persona and his partner. This meaning is important in the poem as it is contiguous with the persona's experience of falling in love. Conscious is up, unconscious is down, hence love is a container here. Also, it is conceptualized as a container. Love is a smoke. And here I'm going to refer you to a very beautiful example from the poem, The Yellow Smoke That Rubs Its Muzzle on the Window Panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. I think that this is one of the most beautiful metaphors in literature, and the animated aspect of the smoke generates the most vivid imagery in the poem. It creates an atmosphere. It creates the atmosphere of love in which the lovers are enclosed. Like atmosphere, which is defined as the fluid gas surrounding the planet, smoke is a fluid element which envelopes the lovers. The yellow color reminds of paleness and its related schemata, sickness, weakness, and fear. And this is also contingent with the conceptual spatial metaphor, love is a container, because they are contained within this smoke. Now I reach my conclusion. So whether love is compared to a flame or to a horrible disease, to a journey or to a gulf, selecting the appropriate love metaphors will help writers convey their intent to readers more easily. Conceptual metaphors can help readers better understand the meaning and experience of love in context. In the love song of Alfred, Prufrock, Eliot integrates a complex of metaphors to lead readers to the diffuse qualities of love as experienced by his modern protagonist. Love is not revealed in this poem through mere descriptions and classical comparisons. It is revealed as a unique personal experience. And findings revealed that the most pervasive conceptual metaphors of love in the poem is love is a container, which is indicative that the love that is presented in this poem is a romantic love. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Radhia. Shukran. You have opened my eyes, because as a student, I was puzzled by this poem and always thought, why is it called the love song? It is not about love, but you tried to open my eyes, so thank you. Maybe there are questions, there are remarks from the audience. Whom may I invite?